Doherty, who was clattered, penalty!
In basketball, there's a popular phrase for a player who can score at will, a walking bucket. In football, there's a player that's built a similar reputation for himself, a wolf on the prowl, able to sniff out the fear of a goalkeeper in an instant, especially when he's standing over the ball 12 yards from goal. This guy may just be in the running for the title of greatest penalty kick taker in Premier League and maybe even football history. It's not Cole Palmer, Bruno Fernandes, or even Harry Kane. It's him. Jimenez, that is. And Raul Jimenez doesn't get talked about nearly enough in this day and age. He's shown throughout his career that he himself is a walking bucket when executing penalties. Sure, he hasn't scored 56 penalties in the Prem like current record holder Alan Shearer, but if you love efficiency, if you prefer quality over quantity, Raul's proof is in the pudding. On February 1st, 2026, he scored from the spot in the Theatre of Dreams, surpassing Yaya Toure for the greatest perfect Premier League penalty record ever. Since Raul joined Wolves back in 2018, the Mexican has converted all 13 of his attempted spot kicks. How did he accomplish this incredible feat? I went through the archives to study Jimenez's penalty-taking career and answer the age-old question. When it comes to taking penalties, who really is the greatest of all time? What I found was intriguing. I hope you'll come along for the journey. This is the story of Raul Jimenez, told on the spot. Before he could take a penalty, Raul Alonso Jimenez Rodriguez took on the name of his father, Raul Jimenez Vega. Born in Tepeji del Rio de Ocampo, Raul's family moved to nearby Mexico City when he was 5 years old. He enrolled in the academy of Club America, the most prestigious football institution in Mexico. By age 20, he debuted for America in a 1-1 draw against Monarcas Morelia. Raul quickly made a name for himself in Liga MX. He featured in Mexico's under-23 squad at the 2012 London Olympics, in which El Tri defeated Brazil in the final to win gold. Riding high from recent Olympic glory, Raul would earn a spot in the America starting 11 for the following 2 seasons. In 103 matches with Las Aguilas, he tallied 38 goals and 16 assists. In 2013, he also showed his clutch gene, scoring a superb bicycle kick against Panama to help Mexico win 2-1 at Estadio Azteca and qualify for the 2014 World Cup. If you haven't seen the goal, it's well worth a YouTube search. His exploits for Club America eventually attracted the eye of Atletico Madrid, who came calling with a €10.5 million transfer fee in August of 2015. When the young attacker's hype levels were near their zenith around this point in his career, the Mexican media was calling him El Zlatan Mexicano. CDP Noticias published an article that read, "At first glance, comparisons between Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Raul Jimenez seem exaggerated, given the careers of both players. Indeed, it does seem like a bit of an overreaction to set Raul side by side with Zlatan, an iconic figure who at the time was winning silverware at some of the biggest clubs in Europe. The physical attributes of both strikers, who despite their large stature are skilled with their feet and use their great physical power to perform spectacular shots that, despite the great differences between them, make the comparisons between the Mexican and the Swede begin to make sense." These articles left big shoes for Raul to fill, and he wasn't able to, at least not with Atleti. A year after joining Los Colchoneros, he passed up a loan move to West Ham in favor of a permanent transfer to Benfica for €22 million. In Lisbon, things started to click for the 24-year-old. Across 120 appearances for As Aguias, he scored 31 goals and added 14 assists, including important contributions in Champions League and domestic fixtures. After 3 seasons in Portugal, Wolverhampton Wanderers came calling. Raul went down on loan to join an exciting up-and-coming side that had seen promotion under new manager Nuno Espírito Santo the previous season. Partnered with super agent Jorge Mendes, Nuno began to recruit some of the most promising young talent in Portugal. Wolves' squad boasted some pretty iconic names in those years: Rui Patricio, João Moutinho, not to mention a laundry list of rising stars including Diogo Jota, Morgan Gibbs-White, Pedro Neto, Ryan Ait-Nouri, and even Vitinha. Rubbing shoulders with all of this talent was a boon for Raul, and he began to thrive as Nuno fervently backed the Mexican as his starting number 9. Jimenez actually missed his first ever penalty for Wolves in preseason against German side Bochum, and had another saved by Fernando Muslera in an international friendly against Uruguay in September of 2018. Although to be fair, he had beaten Muslera from the spot earlier on in the contest. Despite these potential warning signs, Raul began his Premier League penalty dominance on November 3rd, 2018 against Tottenham. He emphatically dispatched the ball into the bottom right corner of the goal as French national team keeper Hugo Lloris dove the wrong direction. That goal proved inconsequential in a 3-2 home defeat, but a few months later, Raul stepped up to the spot again at Bournemouth in the 83rd minute, waiting out Artur Boris to earn Wolves a point. He also broke Stephen Fletcher's record for most goals in a Premier League season in late April with a decider in a 2-1 dub against Watford. The club in yellow made a run to the FA Cup semi-final and finished 7th in the Prem, qualifying for European football, a task they'd not accomplished since 1981. Raul was riding high with 17 goals across the Premier League and FA Cup. That summer, his rich vein of form carried over to international football as he provided a sensational backheel assist to set up Jonathan Dos Santos' goal that enabled El Tri to defeat the US 1-0 in the 2019 Gold Cup final. Jimenez bagged a golden ball as player of the tournament, netting 5 goals in 6 matches for his country. Fosun, the Chinese ownership group of Wolves, liked what they saw, signing Raul permanently from Benfica for a club record 38 million euros. Going into the following season, he continued to display his unique abilities. Standing at 1.87 meters or 6 foot 3 inches, Jimenez is a striker boasting immense size, physicality, and aerial ability. With a cultured right foot he utilizes to finish clinically. He has a nose for goal and is excellent at finding pockets of space for his teammates to find him in the box. At the same time, he moves well for his size and combines his stereotypical striker attributes with the intangibles, namely an insatiable joy for the ball. He has more dribbling ability and flair than he is often given credit for, crafting moments of magic that make football fun for supporters and for himself. I like the back heels, I like the Rabona, the bicycle kick, so I always try to do something different, Jimenez said. But above all, his calling card continued to reveal itself at the penalty mark. Penalties are always what I do. I think I do it well. It's something I've been training my whole career. I like to have this pressure and these penalties, and I'm happy to score. On August 25th, 2019, Wolves were in a sticky situation, trailing 1-0 at home to Burnley, with 5 minutes of stoppage time nearly expired. Ruben Neves sent a shot back into the mixer, and Jimenez shrewdly stepped in front of Burnley left-back Eric Peters to draw a penalty. After a lengthy VAR review, it would have been easy for Raul to lose his nerve. Instead, he gently passed the ball past Nick Pope, who could only watch as Jimenez merited a point for his team. Next, he scored from the spot against Southampton's Angus Gunn in a come-from-behind 1-1 draw at Molineux. To Gunn's credit, he guessed the right direction, but Raul's shot found the corner expertly and left nothing to chance. It was the first time Jimenez shot to his left for a Premier League penalty. In January, the Mexican again proved Southampton's nemesis, scoring Wolves' second goal via a penalty in an eventual 3-2 win at St. Mary's. This time, he bested Alex McCarthy. To cap off the season, Raul scored on Jordan Pickford in a 3-0 drubbing of Everton. By the end of the 1920 season, Jimenez was officially established as a prolific Premier League striker, breaking his own single-season Wolves goals record with a career-high 17 in the league. For the second consecutive season, he was voted Wolves Player of the Year, guiding the club to another 7th-place campaign in the Prem. There was but a singular blemish on Raul's season, a penalty miss against Sevilla in the Europa League quarter-final. Yassine Bounou foiled Jimenez with a save, and Sevilla would eliminate Wolves with a narrow 1-0 victory. Nevertheless, Raul had become a beloved figure among fans in Wolverhampton and Mexico alike. He was given the nickname El Lobo de Tepeji, the Wolf of Tepeji, an homage to his club and his hometown. Nuno and company went into the fall of 2020 with optimism, looking to build on their previous accomplishments. Jimenez was at the peak of his powers, scoring at will and beginning to receive links to top European clubs. He had just signed a 4-year contract extension with Wolves and had recently welcomed his firstborn daughter into the world with his wife Daniela Basso. But before he could take another penalty, Raul's dominant form was harshly interrupted on November 29th, 2020 in a match against Arsenal at the Emirates. Recounting the match, Raul said, "I remember we arrived at the stadium, I left my things in the dressing room, went out with my teammates to see the pitch, and then we returned to the dressing room, and then it's like, lights out." While contesting for a corner, Jimenez and Arsenal center-back David Luiz clashed heads, sending both down to the pitch. Minutes felt like hours as Raul was carried off the pitch on a stretcher while receiving oxygen from a mask. London doctors worked quickly to repair the skull fracture and internal bleeding caused by the collision. Raul was thankfully okay, but what this freak occurrence meant for the future of his career was uncertain. There was potential that Jimenez would never play again. In the midst of this uncertainty, Raul still seemingly remained unperturbed. Jimenez missed the rest of the season, and the impact of his absence had quite the stack effect. Wolves lacked reliable goal scoring and finished the year in 13th. With discontent brewing over recent results, Nuno decided to part ways with Wolves following his contract's expiration. Raul was hard at work rehabilitating during this time and eventually returned for the start of the 21-22 season, albeit wearing protective headgear and with Bruno Lage as his new manager. Jimenez's 9-month recovery and return was remarkable, but it didn't bear much fruit at first. In the next 2 seasons, Wolves and Raul were inconsistent at best. They finished 10th under Lage in 21-22. 3 things you can depend on are death, taxes, and Raul scoring penalties against Southampton. He did it again, this time against Fraser Forster, the first goal in a 3-1 win. Lage struggled in his sophomore season at the helm, being sacked in favor of Spaniard Julen Lopetegui. In 22-23, the old gold finished in 13th. Jimenez struggled to return to his top form, with other forwards like Wang Hee-chan and Diego Costa being favored over him in the starting 11. By this point, Raul was in need of a change of scenery, and Fulham was happy to offer it for the 32-year-old forward. Although some were questioning his ability to regain his previous scoring prowess the injury, the London club took a flyer on the aging striker, purchasing his services for €6.4 million. Raul's form began to improve under new boss Marco Silva. He bounced back from his goalless Premier League record in his final season with Wolves, netting a sum of 7 goals over the entire season. The following season, 24-25, Jimenez provided double that amount, scoring 14 goals across all competitions, including 3 penalties, one a match winner against his former gaffer Nuno's side at Nottingham Forest, and the other 2 combined in the same match against Ipswich to ensure shared points in a 2-2 draw. So far in this 25-26 season, Raul has continued to age like a fine wine, with 9 goals in all competitions and 3 penalty conversions. In December, he scored his second career penalty against Forest, getting the best of John Victor. It was the only goal in the match. In February, Jimenez scored a clinical consolation goal against St. Lomans in an attempted Fulham comeback in an eventual 3-2 loss to Man U at Old Trafford. However, the set piece had special significance to the Mexican forward. With this conversion, Jimenez was 12 for 12 with penalties in the Premier League, surpassing Yaya Touré's 11 for 11 all-time record. Lomans must have known it was the record-breaking 12th penalty for Fulham's number 7 because he handed the ball to Raul with a smile right afterwards. What a great guy, eh? Not satisfied with his new record, Raul one-upped himself 3 weeks later in Wearside, boasting the decisive strike against Robin Roofs and a 3-1 win at Sunderland. Manager Marco Silva has undoubtedly been the biggest factor in Fulham's recent mid-table stability in the Premier League, but the club's wise recruitment of Jimenez and other talents like Harry Wilson, Alex Iwobi, and Joachim Andersen hasn't hurt either. In recent years, El Lobo de Tepe has also solidified his status as a cult hero for L3, putting together key performances in the 24-25 CONCACAF Nations League and 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. He won the Nations League Best Player Award with 5 goals, including all 4 of Mexico's goals in the semifinal and final. Against Panama in the final, Jimenez scored arguably the most monumental penalty of his career to win the whole shebang for his country in stoppage time at an electric atmosphere in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. I mean, the swagger he displayed here to wait out Orlando Mosquera and seal silverware was the stuff of legend. Later in the summer of 2025, Raul also contributed a pivotal equalizer to the top bin past Matt Freese in the Gold Cup final. The match resulted in a highly celebrated comeback 2-1 victory over their fierce rival, the United States, and a clean sweep of 2025 CONCACAF silverware from Mexico. Raul Jimenez is 34 years old, and his contract at Craven Cottage expires this summer. It seems like Silva and Fulham want to turn the attacking reins over to a younger bagsman and 24-year-old Brazilian Rodrigo Muniz, a promising striker they've been trying to phase into their 11 in the past few years. I've seen rumors that Raul could join another Premier League club like West Ham United, stack his commas in Saudi Arabia, or even make a long-awaited return to his beloved boyhood Club America in his motherland where he's adored by millions. None are for certain, but the latter seems most likely in my eyes. All this begs the question, what makes Raul Jimenez so dominant at penalty kicks? In his opinion, it's simple. Be confident that you're going to score. It doesn't matter who's in front of you, you need to be confident that you're going to score. If you watch back all 13 of Raul's penalties in the Premier League, I think we'll find there's a bit more to it than that. There's a few clear patterns evident in Raul's penalty taking, but it seems his biggest strategy is extreme patience. He wants to outweight the goalkeeper and force them to make a decision on which way to move before he even actually strikes the ball. Before virtually every penalty, Raul stands in a straight line from the ball, begins his approach by moving laterally to the left, then tries to discombobulate the keeper by stuttering in some way, shape, or form. The FIFA penalty rules allow players to feint in their penalty run-up, but they can't feint kicking the ball. The beauty of Jimenez run-up stutters is they seem to change every time. Often he will pause twice before kicking, but he varies his mechanics so much that goalies are left in the lurch. To give the keeper an extra half second of apprehension, Raul will perform a slight hop before striking the ball. This is the portion of the run-up in which he will determine which way the keeper is diving so he can place his shot the other way. It's difficult for goalies to read where Raul is targeting because his penalty placement is nearly an even split between the left and right side of the goal. One thing that is predictable is Jimenez's shot elevation. He prefers to keep the ball along the pitch surface, leaving the strike on the ground in 9 out of his 13 EPL penalties. In many cases, all the Mexican has to do is gently pass the ball past an embarrassed opponent stuck falling the wrong direction. In the Prem, goalkeepers have guessed the wrong way against Raul 9 times out of 13. These tactics seem to work universally against shot stoppers, as Jimenez has dispatched his 13 Premier League spot kicks against 12 different goalkeepers. The only time he's defeated someone in a set-piece duel twice was against Ipswich's Christian Walton, with both transpiring back-to-back in the same match. Raul's penalty tactics are so challenging to deal with as an opposing goalkeeper that sometimes they just flat out piss people off. In fact, Nick Pope was so frustrated Raul scored against him in 2019, he almost nailed him with the ball. There's one other pattern I notice in Jimenez Premier League penalty record that made me chuckle. He loves to bully Southampton. He scored 3 of his 13 spot kicks against the Saints, and funny enough, it was against 3 separate keepers: Angus Gunn, Alex McCarthy, and Fraser Forster. Speaking of keepers, let's enter their headspace momentarily. How do you stymie a shooter who has penalty kicks down to a science like this? Former professional goalkeeper in Sweden, Matt Pietrowski, has some thoughts. The challenge of facing a shooter with the quality of Jimenez all boils down to patience. You will be telling yourself to wait, and keep waiting, then find the perfect time to begin your own movements. Manchester United goalkeeper Senne Lammens did a pretty good job of this against Jimenez. The Belgian waited a long time to decide which way he would dive and eventually chose correctly. This put Jimenez in a difficult situation, but he was shrewd to lift the ball into the upper tier of the goal, escaping an end to his historic league run. Marco Silva weighed in on Raul's strategy. When the goalkeeper doesn't move, it's the moment for him to be very assertive in the way he's going to take. Only 2 goalkeepers have proved to be Raul's kryptonite so far: Yassine Bounou and Fernando Muslera. The Moroccan spoiled arguably the biggest penalty kick of Jimenez's tenure at Wolves, their 2020 Europa League quarterfinal tie against Sevilla. This is a bit of a subjective take, but in the lead up to this penalty, Raul looked pretty anxious compared to his normal ice-cold demeanor. I don't blame the guy, to be honest. It was his club's first foray into Europe in 40 years, and there was a lot on the line. Regardless, I think Bounou's secret sauce was the little shimmy we see here. He fakes to the left, then fakes to the right a bit, right as Raul is about to hit the shot. Then finally, the goalie dives to his left to deny his opponent. Whereas Jimenez was able to elevate up high against Lammens, here he puts it low and doesn't find the corner either. Lucas Ocampos cashed a header for the Spanish side in the 88th minute, and Wolves haven't been back to Europe since, sadly. The second miss of Jimenez's career was far less consequential in the Mexico vs Uruguay friendly in 2018. In their first head-to-head from the spot in the match, Raul beat Muslera high to the right, although the then Galatasaray keeper chose the right course, trying to make the save. Late on in the match, Muslera redeemed himself against the Mexican striker. This one is a bit puzzling to me. As you can see from this frozen frame, Raul had sufficient information to place the ball the opposite way. Muslera had already started his move, but despite that, he steers his effort the way the Uruguayan is already diving and doesn't elevate. It's not an excuse, but take into account the scoreline. Mexico was trailing by 3, and it was also late in the match, so maybe Jimenez just had a loss of concentration on this one. And I mean, neither Bounou nor Muslera are of world-class caliber, but they're both keepers who start for their national teams and have had solid club careers, so there's really nothing to be ashamed of. We have to face the facts at this point. Raul Jimenez is money from 12 yards out. That's no debate, but how much does this skill set benefit his club and his country? In football, the name of the game at the end of the day is to pick up points in the table, and you do that by getting positive results on the pitch. Football is a fairly low-scoring game, so each goal has a large impact on a match. Across Raul's career, he's often stepped up to the spot with his club trailing. 6 of his penalties in the Prem have drawn his side level with their opposition after being behind. Additionally, he scored 4 decisive penalties that have helped his team achieve victory. If you take away El Lobo de Tepeji's pens for Wolves and Fulham, you're diminishing 13 points from their respective league standings. Typically, a Premier League club needs around 35 points to secure safety. Granted, these 13 points are spread out over 7 seasons of Raul's EPL career, but even 3 points in a season can be the difference between relegation or security, like Everton's win on the final day against Bournemouth in the 22-23 season in a close shave over Leicester in a relegation dogfight. It could even determine whether you finish in the Champions League or miss out, like Aston Villa learned the hard way after an embarrassing 2-0 loss to a struggling Manchester United in the last match day of the schedule. Narrow margins, Newcastle qualified on goal difference alone. And as we all know, a single goal can even decide a title. This is a big reason why Fulham boss Marco Silva treasures his Mexican talisman so highly. The calmness, the quality, the braveness to go until the last moment. He's a great taker and very reliable. Note the calmness in Jimenez that Silva highlights specifically. The importance of penalties can also place a lot of stress on the penalty taker. 10 of the striker's 13 EPL penalties have come in the second half, and 2 of them came in stoppage time. Not to mention that Nations League final penalty we talked about earlier on for El-3. For these meteoric moments, the clutch gene is a non-negotiable. This clutch gene is an intangible element that's hard to measure, but if you look at Raul in the lead up to taking a penalty, no matter the stage of the game, he typically looks pretty calm, like here in stoppage time, in a match with a level scoreline and silverware up for grabs. Compare that to some other facial expressions we've seen from players before penalties, and I'd give the Mexican a mental edge over many of football's upper echelon. One thing that is not intangible is Raul's penalty conversion percentage. The expected goals value of a penalty is 0.79. This essentially means that when a player takes a penalty, there is a 79% chance of them scoring. Through round 28 of the 2025-26 Premier League season, 60 of 73 penalties have been scored. scored. That's an 82% success rate. Raul's percentage across his career is far better than that at 95%, so he is a well above average penalty taker and gives his side a much greater probability of scoring. Hands down, in my book, the biggest argument for the L3 star's quality is the form of his clubs with him healthy and firing on all cylinders. Simply put, when Raul was scoring in the double digits, Wolves qualified for Europe for the first time in 4 decades and finished 7th in the top flight in back-to-back seasons. Post-head injury and Wolves selling him, they haven't returned to those heights and are going to get relegated this season most likely. Sure, Jimenez's departure is far from the singular reason behind the West Midlands club's fall from grace, but look up articles about them from the 2020-21 season. Nuno and others attributed a lot of the team's decline to a lack of scoring from Raul. Raul Jimenez is 13 for 13 in the Premier League and 44 for 46 across the entirety of his 15-year career, attempting penalties in 3 different countries. These stats are truly remarkable, but the real question is, how does he compare to others? Is Jimenez the greatest penalty kick taker ever? Well, Sports Illustrated writer Barnaby Lane ranked the 50 best penalty takers all time last year, and he only placed Raul 28th. I gotta say, I think Barnaby's sleeping on him big time. There are a couple ways we can go about judging who the best penalty merchant ever is. Let's use success rate as our metric first. Among active footballers who have taken at least 50 career pens, Mario Balotelli has the highest percentage with 91%. When it comes to penalties, it's always him. If we narrow our scope to athletes presently in Europe's top 5 leagues, Bayern legends Harry Kane and Robert Lewandowski take the cake with 88.8% each. Harry has a slight advantage over Robert because he's made 8 more than his Polish counterpart. And I think Kane has a little bit more time to add to that total, and he's currently flying in Munich. Raul has only taken 46 penalty kicks, but if we include him in the 50-plus conversation, he has been more prolific than Balotelli, Lewandowski, and Kane. He's 95% effective, and he's not the first Mexican to enjoy superior spot kick form. Hugo Sanchez made 94% of his penalties, and Cuauhtemoc Blanco made 97%, the most of any player to attempt over 50 penalties in his career. Still, a 95% success rate makes Jimenez the most clinical penalty taker in the world right now, other than Bulgarian goalkeeper Vladislav Stoyanov. Yes, you heard me right. My jaw dropped when I found this during my research. Stoyanov is indeed a goalkeeper. He's 38 years old, and he currently plays in Austria's 7th tier. Official records state that he's made 24 of his 24 career spot kicks. At the peak of his powers, Stoyanov was holding it down for Moldovan club Sheriff and Bulgarian club Ludogorets, 2 outfits that have made appearances in the Champions League in the last decade. I find it almost unfathomable that there be a current footballer who's never missed a penalty in 24 tries, especially a goalkeeper. Funny enough, Vladislav actually admitted in an interview that he missed a penalty in the Bulgarian 2nd tier, but no records are available, so it isn't officially counted. The current Ipswich player's other claim to fame involves his penalty saves. Ironically enough, he's stopped Cristiano Ronaldo twice from the spot. The first was in 2014 for Ludogorets in a 2-1 loss to Real Madrid. Cristiano went on to convert a penalty against Vladislav later in the match, it must be said. The second save was more pivotal, coming for Bulgaria's national team in an epic 1-0 upset of Portugal in a 2016 friendly. The year CR7 and company would win the Euros, oddly enough. Speaking of Ronaldo, I was wondering, where are CR7 and Messi in this conversation? If we're judging purely off of penalties made, Cristiano Ronaldo takes the cake. He scored 181 in his prestigious career, more than anyone else in football history, and many have been on the biggest stage. But at the same time, he's also missed 35 attempts. As for Lionel Messi, he's my GOAT, but not my penalty GOAT. He scored 114 penalties, which is a lot, but he's also had 146 chances, so that amounts to a subpar percentage of 78%. Has anyone been truly perfect from the spot in their career? Matt Letizia was close. He was a household name for Southampton in the 90s, making 48 of 49 in his career. The only penalty he ever missed was such a memorable moment in English football that Southampton renamed the end of their stadium where the shot was stopped Crossley Place, after the Nottingham Forest netminder who performed the heroics, Mark Crossley. Lady Opano holds the world record for penalty perfection with a perfect 50 from 50 mark in the 80s and 90s, competing in the Albanian and Greek top flights. As much as I admire the guile and wherewithal he's displayed over his consistent career, Raul Jimenez, nor anyone else I've mentioned so far, is really the GOAT of penalty kicks. After weeks of researching for this video, my humble opinion is that that title belongs to a name that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Croatian Davor Šuker. Šuker was a talented striker that helped develop Croatia's football pedigree and found success in his prime under the lights of the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid. He twice scored over 25 goals in a season for Real Madrid, and even won a Champions League with Spain's most successful football club. Šuker doesn't quite have the pedigree of Croatia's first man of football, Luka Modric, but he played a huge role in helping Kokasti, the checkered ones, qualify for their first ever World Cup in 1998. At that World Cup, Šuker won the Golden Boot ahead of some flashy names like Ronaldo Nazario and helped Croatia place third in the tournament. Šuker had an abundance of weapons in his attacking toolbox, and penalties were arguably his top asset. I've chosen Davor as my GOAT because he is the only world-class player to attempt a respectable number of penalties without ever missing. He went a perfect 39 for 39 shooting against the world's best goalkeepers in elite competitions like the Champions League and World Cup in some very high-pressure situations. Remember Croatia's 98 World Cup run I was mentioning? With the hopes of one of the most patriotic and football-mad nations in the world resting on his shoulders, Šuker cashed in a match-winning penalty against Romania in the round of 16 not once, but twice. That's right, he scored his first attempt against goalkeeper Bogdan Stelia. The referee negated it because of a Croatian teammate encroaching into the 18-yard box, and then Šuker said, "No worries, I'll just do it again." He almost ripped a hole in the net's bottom right corner. Such was the power behind his strike to seal a 1-0 win for his country. I'm pretty sure when you look up the word clutch in the dictionary, there's a picture of Davor Šuker there. I mean, this man would feel his own pulse before penalties to help himself calm down and focus on the task at hand. The paparazzi constantly questioned him on his penalty strategy throughout his career, and this was his response. "Everyone keeps asking me to reveal my secret, but if I told everyone my technique, it wouldn't be a secret anymore, would it?" So Raul may not be the GOAT of penalty kicks, but he's got a lot to be proud of. I'll throw some of his accolades at you here rapid fire. First of all, the Premier League perfect penalty record, as of this recording of course, but I sincerely hope he holds on to it. It's a really unique honor. He's third all-time in goal scoring for the Mexican national team and has made more appearances for El Tri than any other striker. He holds the single-season goal scoring record for Wolves in the Premier League era, scoring 17 times in 1920. He's only the third Mexican to score 100 goals in Europe, alongside names like Hugo Sanchez and Chicharito. Finally, he's the all-time leader in matches played and goals scored in the Premier League among Mexicans. El Lobo, El Pirata, El Luchador, whatever you want to call him, you have to call him an icon of Mexican football heritage and a clinical penalty taker.